Loch, it's really a pleasure to meet you, first of all, and it's a pleasure to read your book. I also read Shift into Freedom and enjoyed that. So thanks for doing this. I know it was sort of a random LinkedIn connection, and I'm glad you were gracious enough to join us. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, I'm glad to be here, John. Yeah.
I have sort of two broad categories I thought it would be interesting to talk to you about. One is sort of more about the nature of effortless mindfulness and awake awareness and so forth. And then the other is more about the practice
Yeah.
of effortless mindfulness. So I thought we'd start with the nature. And I have a couple questions. I won't do the sort of more foundational questions of, what's your background? Because I feel like if people are here, then they know, or they could watch the Q&A. So let's just get into it, right? Let's just get grinding.
I can read the beginning of any, my first book and give a little, or bio, look at my website.
Yeah. So, okay, so I have a question. My understanding of awakening, my extremely limited understanding of awakening from the perspective of Mahamudra, Dzogchen, and the sort of, at least the Tibetan, what you might call non-dual practices, the understanding that I got is that there's sort of an interesting binary there, which is that if you are, let's call it recognizing Rigpa, just to use language that is comfortable for probably a lot of people and the one that I understand, if you're recognizing Rigpa, right, if you are recognizing the sort of non-dual nature of mind, what I got from one of my teachers, who's Sokni Rinpoche, your teacher Tulku Urgyen's son, that basically when you're resting in the recognition, you are essentially a Buddha, right? You are partaking of the same mind, essentially the same quality of mind as a fully awakened Buddha.
Yes.
And that when you're not resting in the recognition, you are essentially a completely ordinary person. That was sort of the impression that I got, was that it's like a switch that flicks. And according to Rinpoche, filtered through me, of course, rightly or wrongly, the goal is to learn to rest in that recognition, to abide in Rigpa for longer and longer periods, and not sort of fall out quite as quickly. But that when you are fallen out, you are fallen, you are a worldling. Do I understand that right? Or is it more nuanced than that?
Well, yeah, I mean, there is some of this interesting, schools even within Dzogchen and within Mahamudra that are a little different. And I've studied with Sokni quite a bit, so I know, and he's almost of two minds. Like when he describes it as emptiness, clarity, and compassionate activity. But then you're supposed to rest as more pristine awareness, which is a certain Dzogchen style that does have a little either or in it. And so I would say that we're ordinary beings, and ordinary beings can be awake or confused or ignorant. And that just means contracted and, turned in on themselves. And that in any moment of resting as, I would say, Ran Rigpa, and same taste, which is more Mahamudra, then you're an awakened being. So it's almost like the stages for me of in Mahamudra has a little more stage practice. So Dzogchen is a little more confused, and then Rigpa can be, a little too pristine for me. Whereas Mahamudra says, okay, that is, that's Rigpa, and then there's awareness that's an inseparable pair. As aliveness, it's not separate. Ultimate reality and relative reality are not two. So that experience is when awareness has the same taste as aliveness. And that feeling, that's what allows you to not have to kind of be, kind of find this sustained opposite of ordinary consciousness, because actually awareness and aliveness, you're then what Zen practitioners call ordinary mind, which actually is awake, but like includes everything.
Right. But is it still the case, and I don't know what the answer is, this isn't a sort of rhetorical question, is it still the case though that even when you think of things that way, in that very sort of, even a sort of Heart Sutra, form is emptiness, emptiness is form type of way, you could still sort of see that clearly and know it and embody it, or you could not, right? Like even an advanced Mahamudra practice an advanced Mahamudra practitioner will fall again into delusion, right, at times.
Yes, which is why there's kind of direct recognition, gradual unfolding, always awakeness, always unfolding. So there's kind of never, there's not an either or really. There's always a both. There's always a both and. You know, samsara is nirvana, nirvana is samsara. So even in nirvana, you know, as a, you know, living a human life as an awake being, you have, you know, Buddha ate, you know, bad pork and died. You know, like, you know, so it's not snuffing out the candle, meaning, you know, you don't have human emotions, which is another group of people that feel like that's some sign. But it's the mixing, and it's the shift from thought-based small mind to awareness-based bodhicitta functioning.
Yeah.
So that starts to mix, and then you're kind of like, you know, as you transition to that, first you can only glimpse it in moments. It's easier when you're sitting. It's easier if you're on retreat, and then you can do it anywhere, short moments, and then you start to function from it. And then it's kind of like a dance where you're kind of losing it, but you're not losing it. Oh, you're including it. And a part of you arises that starts judging, but then the awareness kind of says, oh, hello there, you sweet judging part of me. You know, judging mind. And then there's like a dance, and then there's some part that starts to arise that's like old karmic content that has emotional repressed. It starts coming up, and then you just like let it come up and then embrace it, and then it goes like, whoa, like a roller coaster, and you're like, okay, this is all self-liberating. So it's not, you know, and then it just moves through, and then you're like, wow. You know, so it's like this more of a dance than an either or.
Yeah, not so much of that clean binary that.
That's right.
Right. Okay, that's quite helpful, Loch. Thank you. I was really curious about that, especially since, you know, I've studied with Tibetan teachers and I've studied with Theravadan teachers, and the Theravadan paradigm is very much one of gradually getting wiser, gradually seeing more clearly. And so I was curious about how that compared or contrasted with the view of the essence traditions. And it's interesting to hear that it's not a stark contrast with a sort of black and white binary from the essence traditions, that is more of an organic, developing, unfolding.
Yeah, it's almost that the only thing is they say like the essence tradition is swooping down from above while climbing up from below.
Yep.
So you're introduced immediately to the goal. You know, like the beginning is the goal, rather than, you know, like literally having no idea as you're like doing, you're actually reinforcing when you're doing one point attention, you're reinforcing and reifying the small effortful ego, you know, whereas in order to calm, you know, so this is like saying, well, let's just recognize right away the, you know, what's here and who you are, and then start to kind of integrate it.
Yeah. On that note, related to that, maybe we can cover this one briefly because I'm excited to ask you my next question after this one. But on exactly what you just said, another thing that I read from Sokni Rinpoche was this idea that, yes, Dzogchen is a sort of instant awakening in a sense. It's a sort of direct realization. But then he also said there's a bunch of practice that you need to do in order to even be ripe for the Dzogchen realization. And he used the analogy, I think, of a candle, the idea that you need to sort of build up the candle wax. You need to create the candle. You need to put the wick in. You need to do all that before you can light the candle. And he was talking about, I think, shamatha practice, concentrative practice. He was talking about the nundro, the preliminary practices. And so he seemed to be saying that you really need to do that stuff before this can be pointed out. Right. But on the other hand, Rinpoche gives the pointing out instruction to people on their very first retreat. So I'm curious what you make of all that.
Yeah, I mean, some of it is, as I said, that there's some mixing and some starting from the pointing out of the true nature as essential for those who can get it, and just as the context of the approach, that it's already here, like that you don't have to do anything. So let's start by pointing it out. Now, not everyone gets it, but you start there. Now, yeah, my feeling is studying history of religions and understanding that some of those practices are ancient practice. They're culturally bound. They're religiously, about forming a kind of a religion and a bond. They're also often for young monks that they have to develop and do these things. The Western nundro is high school, college, and living in a family, having friends, trying to have a intimate relationship, that's the nundro. In other words, you're developing the candle by being growing up. You're growing up in order to wake up. So you can have little glimpses as a 4-year-old, but Toko Ergen, who did 3 3-year retreats, then tells the story, and told it the first time I arrived to see him. He said, yeah, but when I was 16, my uncle pointed out my true nature before I had even formally started studying. And it's no different now after 3 3-year retreats. I got it then, and nothing was added. So there's something in having the vehicle built, so that you can live a awake human life. I think that's what preliminary practice. I have a whole thing where I think shamatha practice, as practiced by one pointed attention, actually should be so short. And there's actually better ways to calm and focus. That is actually from the neuroscience studies, in terms of the default mode network and the task mode network, which are these parts of the brain that naturally alternate looking out, what's going on out there, looking in, looking out, looking in. So 2 networks, look in, comes on, then look out, comes on. And so when you try to watch your breath and use attention, you can watch your breath, but then your mind wanders, means it goes to default mode. And then you try to bring it back, you're most time waiting. And then if you keep doing it, you repress the intrinsic default mode, and you put on task mode full bore. So it's a unitary, one dimension, and you're calm because you're in task mode, but you're comfortably numb. Sokni Rinpoche came here and said, why is everyone in the US doing stupid meditation? So
yeah, he loves saying that, stupidity meditation.
And that's what that is a repressed default mode network that you, in order to go to the next mode, even insight, you have to leave it. You have to go internal, which is what insight is. And then if you go immediately to the awareness that's embodied, you're calm and focused. You go right to calm and focus. Or if you do some some breath work. Just do some breath, and then that's enough. Now open and come back, and now let your body calm from spacious, pervasive awareness, and focus using local awareness on your breath, or focus on your breath, from your belly, on your belly. So there's a whole, so I think that preliminary practice is grow up in order to wake up. And once you wake up, please continue to grow.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think I read that somewhere. I think I read you saying that somewhere, that you thought that, pranayama or sort of other methods of stimulating the vagus nerve and that is essentially, to you, is essentially what the point of shamatha is, and maybe actually a little easier to get at. So that's a really interesting perspective.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm ready. I'm ready. I hope you're ready for this slightly rude question that I'm going to ask. So you're sort of famously a student of Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche, who pointed out the nature of your mind. And you're, not the only Western student who was sort of blown away by pointing out instructions from Tulku Urgyen. One prominent person is Sam Harris, the philosopher, writer, neuroscientist, cultural commentator, podcaster. And in his book, Waking Up, he talks about how completely paradigm shifting it was for him to encounter Tulku Urgyen and have Tulku Urgyen point out the nature of mind to him. That he basically said that in just a few minutes, Tulku Urgyen skillfully, as if he were pointing out your own optic blind spot, which is a thing that anyone can do to anyone. He pointed out the selfless, non-dual nature of Sam's mind to Sam. You similarly wrote in The Way of Effortless Mindfulness that in something like 3 minutes, Tulku Urgyen just took the top right off your head. And so here's my question, because you were both very coy. What did Tulku Urgyen say to you?
I mean, I asked him, a couple times, but asked him, can I share these things you're sharing with me? So I kept, and his translator would get all huffy, and then Tulku Urgyen would look at him and say, what did he ask in Tibetan? It's like, well, can he add, it's like, yes, you can share this with friends. This is not nothing here is anything that I am not sharing with a general audience, and nothing dangerous. So I say it in the book. The one that he shared to me was, send your awareness into the corner of the room, and then have your awareness look back to find the one who sent it. And it just went up and then went right through me and opened up right into this kind of embodied, awake field of spacious, pervasive awareness. It popped my small self and went right through, and then dropped me into this other dimension. So that's the one he shared with me. And I had similar, as you see, I had similar experiences with like a Chinese doctor I had met, and and other experiences on Vipassana retreat, and I'd had a near-death experience, when I had my appendix out, and so each of those was unique. What was so fascinating was, it was intentionally done, quick, immediate, and showed me, it's here, and I just, this is what I realized after a 21-day retreat. So I just climbed up this mountain, and now here I am, and my eyes are open, and I'm laughing, and I'm crying, and I'm like talking. I'm not sitting there for 21 days, and yet it's the same. So that was the thing that caught me and said, oh wow, okay, this is really can be done. Like if he just did that, there's something something essential and learnable here, and that's why I kept asking him, can I teach this? Can I share this kind of stuff? He said, yeah, anything here. And Dzogchen says that too. He says, you can share anything you learned except for this one classical practice that he's sometimes shares in advanced retreats, but it's nothing, no big deal. It's not a big different thing.
And when Tulku Urgyen, so did he say it as simply as that in essentially as few words?
Yeah. Just like that. Just that, let's just do this. We did a couple of them, couple of little things. He did, look out, look in, and this is like default mode network. Look out, look in, look out, look in, always looking out, always looking in. And then drop, some people really like that one. And they, the group I was with, it was like, I didn't understand that one in the corner, but when he went like that, it was like everything stopped, And I kind of got everything stopped, but it didn't have it had more the silent, almost like the best shamatha experience of stillness. Whereas this one kind of, it just like lit me up, like, oh, wow, like I'm not in my head and yet I can talk and I'm in my heart and everything's lit up and I'm connected to it and this is here. And he didn't say any of those things. He didn't say you're connected to everything, you're lit up, there's love. It was just like your awareness is stuck here. You think you're putting it out there, but actually it's out there already. It just turned around. So a lot of my practices are, use local awareness. That's my main unique thing in my approach. And that was the thing that was unique. Like send your, it's actually not attention. I do a whole thing about the difference between attention and local awareness, unhooking local awareness and have it feel your hand from within rather than going to your head, because that's what opens up to this more, interconnected, same taste awakening.
Yeah. Wow. So this is like sort of a scoop for me. If it is actually in one of your books, then I'm sorry that I missed it.
Yeah.
But I had no idea what specifically Tulku Urgyen said, and Harris doesn't share it in his book.
Right.
Gives it an air of mystery. Of course, it would be so simple.
Right.
Of course. And I want to ask, is it okay if we go for 5 more minutes or so, Loch, or do you have to run?
Sure.
Okay. So I want to briefly ask, were there any other, because I almost feel like a weird sort of, I'm not a journalist, but I feel an almost journalistic obligation to ask, was there any, because you said the corner thing, but then you added that he did this sort of looking in, looking out practice. Were there any others?
No, I mean, that's the funny thing is there, a bunch of others, but they didn't hit home with me. And he, Dzogchen does a lot of them. I don't know, did Dzogchen ever do that with you at any retreat?
He didn't do that one, no.
You know who did that is, some other visiting would do that. But it's, that's the thing. I think, and when I've done that one with people, I don't tell them usually. I don't even know if I say it in the book, because the guy who taught me the secret of the golden flower, Chinese medicine guy who's also in my first book, he said, the secret of the golden flower is turn the light of awareness around. That is the sublime truth. And he said, you know what it means? It means your light of awareness is going out like a flashlight here. So you see the flashlight going out here. So turn the light of awareness around. And when he did that, it was like on this level, it just went through my head, which is one of the ones Sam Harris does.
Sure.
I do some on his app too, some similar ones. So I had a taste of that, and I think I've developed ones. So anyhow, when I use that one, only about, I would say, 1 out of 30 people think that's a good one. Whereas the other ones I've developed, I basically get, I can get, 2 out of 3 on most, most of the other shorter ones.
Mm.
But again, it's like different types, different doorways that I've kind of got the principle of it, and then I just create ways to get to the same, untie the same knots.
Mm. And that brings me to something I do want to ask you in terms of practice of this. I want to ask you about local awareness a little bit.
Yes.
And I'm asking because I think it's interesting for people who might watch this, but I'm really asking for myself.
Yeah.
So, I feel like there are probably people who read your books, watch your videos, and just get it, right? It clicks immediately. You tell them unhook local awareness from thought, drop down, expand it into awareness, and people just go. And then, or even if they don't get it right away, they understand what you're pointing to, and they can practice it until it sort of kicks in for them.
Yeah.
I want to ask questions on behalf of those of us who don't get it so readily.
Okay.
Because I want, but sincerely want to, right?
Yes.
Because I want to believe that we are not irredeemably beyond reach, right? That those of us who don't immediately lock into it, that doesn't just mean tough luck, this ain't gonna work for you. That maybe that there's a way that if we just understood a little differently or realized the way that we weren't connecting with it, it could unlock for us. Now, so the first question I want to ask is local awareness.
Yeah.
So this seems to be almost the main tool. It's like the scalpel with which you operate your practice. And I at first understood local awareness to be a sort of awareness of a locality from within that locality, rather than sort of vectoring toward it from this sort of felt sense of being in your head.
Yes.
And so when you say, feel your jaw from your jaw or drop into your heart, I sort of understand this idea of don't feel like you're up here looking at that. Feel like you're in that.
That's right.
Even though it's hard for me to do, and we could talk about that, I get that. I understand at least what you're pointing at. But then when you talk about put local awareness up into the corner or put local awareness into a location in space, that's harder for me to understand. Now, part of me is afraid that you're simply going to say this cannot be further articulated. Tough.
No, it can. Yeah.
But can you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So the principle is when you're operating from that small mind and small self and brain-based focus, you're using your attentional system. So attention is a type of awareness. Webster Dictionary defines it as applying your mind to something. So you're literally using this mind and applying it to your breath, or bring your attention to an object in the room. Now bring your attention to another object in the room. Now focus on the whole lamp. Now focus on the switch of the lamp. And you're using your mind. So that focusing ability is very helpful for functioning in the world. That one's called attention. That one has a very strong subject-object functional, and people like create amazing things who are like totally in their small self and like have great success. So it's a good thing. So now the premise is, all right, the way I found it was reverse engineering. So, I mean, I'd add the principle, send your awareness into the corner and have it look back. So it was almost like it was a ball going up and coming back and through. But the key is, I can lead you. I would probably be able to find a type of doorway that doesn't use local awareness, like one of them, it's called the memory door, where I ask people, okay, now, have you ever experienced this sense of interconnection, drop out of your head, flow, awake consciousness in some place, go to that place, use your imagination, close your eyes. Now really feel it, feel the place, now let go of the place, now feel the qualities, now let go of the qualities, now feel the essence of who you are and what's there. Now open your eyes, is it still here? And when you open your eyes, because it's your consciousness, you're now in this field. You're not looking from this point of view. The feeling is, right, that you're dropped and open and you're looking from this panoramic field, right? Something like that. How would you say it?
Yeah, you're right. I think of it. I think of
How
it.
do you? Yeah, feel it. Yeah.
Yeah. But like you're not vectoring at something, right?
Yeah.
You're not contracting around anything.
Yeah. So that pointer of feeling this, which is strange because that's like intellectual people. What do you mean I'm aware from the space around me? You know, like, I don't know. That one I can't explain. But when you do, your brain balances, your parietal lobes relax, and you feel like not afraid, and you feel as if you're timeless, boundless, and aware from the timeless, boundless. Now, when you're in timeless, boundless, staying there, can you focus on your belly? Where are you focusing on it from? Everywhere and here. Can you focus on that lamp from the field? Yes. Where are you aware of? Well, kind of from this big awareness field, like an ocean, and I'm aware of the wave of what I'm focusing on from the ocean and from the wave, which is connected to the ocean. Like I feel like I'm focusing on it. So whether it's inside or outside, local awareness is the non-local feeling of awakened consciousness, which has no locations, everywhere, nowhere, and here. And yet from there you function by focusing inner, outer, and you're not using your attentional system, and it actually shows up that way. The attentional system doesn't turn on.
But how does one, so if I push back a little bit, you just described how if you used another method to sort of drop into a more awake awareness, you could understand what local awareness is. But for people who are interested in understanding how to use local awareness before as a way into awake awareness, and I feel like you were in the middle of doing it, and then we sort of we went on a quite an interesting digression, but you were talking about, when we're talking about local awareness, not as your jaw from within your jaw, but as the corner of the room. Or there's a glimpse you do in the book called the U-turn, where it's a similar thing. You talk about put your local awareness out in the space in front of you. So can you and you said to me just a few minutes ago that it is possible to unpack that more, what you mean by that.
So going, so I'll do a series with people in a day long or something like that. And I'll go in, I'll have it drop in, I'll have it go in the corner of the room and look back. I'll have take your attention out onto an object. Now notice that as your attention goes out, your local awareness can become aware of the space within. Now it can become aware of the space between your ears. Now it can become aware of the space behind your head. And then I'll do, okay, now be aware of your hand from your eyes. Now unhook your awareness and have it become aware of your hand from your hand, and send the information from your hand, not to your head, but to the field of intelligence, which is your Rigpa mind, which is also, arising in the field. So I'll do things like that. And if, I'll get, 4 out of 5 or 3 out of 5 people that way. But if I lead the other way and you go through the memory door, let's say, since I just said that, and then you're in this field, and now can you be aware of your belly from your belly? Can you be aware of your knee from your knee and all around your knee? Yeah, of course. Okay, that's local awareness. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. And that's actually how I did it. Then I reverse engineered it. Okay, now let it go up my body, and now let it go back into my head, and let it identify with my thoughts and close me down. Oh, now I'm like, yeah, okay, now let go. Now go back, drop back, go back to your knee. Oh, yeah, now it all opened up again. But I was just going back to my knee. Yeah, but you were already there. And then you let your local awareness become identified with thought and a thinker and past and future. And then it just started to go back to that normal consciousness. And then I looked out and I said, okay, now reverse engineer. Let go, unhook, drop, open, include. Oh, that's what you mean by local awareness. So
sorry,
it doesn't have to be in the beginning. You don't have to do it in the beginning. It ultimately is a functional way of living an awake life.
Mm.
And it seems to be one of the best simple doors. But it doesn't have to be, but most people can get a feel from it through reverse engineering it.
Mm. So if like feeling your knee from within your knee is local awareness, feeling your jaw from within your jaw is local awareness.
Yeah, from in and then also all around. Then it, as if the information, so when I do like my pain reduction thing with people who are in chronic pain, they can do mindfulness of pain, which is you feel the pain and you this, okay, now I'm aware of pain sensations in my head. So now you'll go from an 8 to like a 6. Now, if you unhook local awareness, you go, let's say you have arthritis in your hand that is chronic and inflamed, and you go in and you see there's no knife in there. You take the signal that's been going to the operator. Check this out. Check this out. Negative pain signal to the brain. Check it out. Check it out. Now you take the operator, go in, see there's no knife there, no threat. Now send the signal to the wider mind. It goes from 8 to 2 or 1. Because you're actually in it, but you're in it and you're connected to the awake consciousness, which is the real nature of your mind.
Mm. Mm.
Is not in your head. Your mind's not in your head.
Right.
That's the functional. Just like your hand is here, your brain is here, your eyes are here, your foot is there, but they're all appearing to this awareness consciousness.
Yeah. It is quite hard in practice, I find, I tried just before we went on for the Q&A, I was playing with this idea of local awareness, just feeling your hand as your hand, in your hand, from your hand. And it is very hard not to flicker back to, well, yes, and it is below and to the left of my head, which is where I am.
But that's the thing is this, so you gotta, that's why like some methods work with headlessness as the first. Gotta find a way to make that not the center. But then, so then when your hand goes and you get a feeling of, you're aware from your head, now step out, and now notice that your head is an object in the field of awareness. That's a real good one. Your head is an object. You're not looking from your head, you're looking at your head. Your head is not the subject, it's the object. And so start playing. So it's not about, I mean, I've kind of, I'm not rigid or like wed to one method. I'm like, I get the map and I'm really interested in helping people like, okay, you can't go to that door. Let's try this door because you're going to get it. If you're interested, we'll find it. And there's certain classical places to get stuck. And, either the first level of unstuck or people stopping halfway in like pure awareness, that's detached, and I'm awake, I'm pure awareness, and everything else is a movie coming and going. A lot of the non-dual teachers are like, there's just awareness, everything else is like it's like a screen on a movie, and everything else is the movie. I'm not the movie. It's like, no, I'm the movie and the screen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. Well, that's why I think it's a wonderful thing about your approach, that you are so flexible, that you come at it from so many different angles. It sounds not dissimilar from what Tulku Urgyen did for your group when you went to visit him.
That's right. Yeah, I think he had gotten to that. And it's very, it's very contemporary, like, democratic, scientific in its best sense of science, meaning let's see what's true.
Sure. Pragmatic.
Pragmatic, and so very American in some ways. It's very.
Yeah. Well, we're in America, right? So that's what the Dharma has to start to look like.
Yeah. But it is a little. It's tricky because it's it's so interesting how it does keep people from starting, because there is, as you say, there's a little frustration if you don't get the first doorways. Like, you look around and say, these people seem to be getting it, I'm not getting it. All right, never mind, I'll go back to my other thing.
But, very much. I certainly relate to that. Like, Vipassana is much less confusing, right?
Right.
There's no worry there's no fear that I can't do this, or I'm not doing it, or there's something I'm not seeing. It's like, note this, note that, note that.
Yeah.
I know I can do that.
That's right.
And one thing that I also think happens, that certainly happens for me, is there's this understanding, I think maybe a correct understanding, that when you see it, when you actually experience awake awareness, when it is pointed out to you successfully, it seems to be unmistakable and mind-blowing for the people who experience it. So I hear about your experience, I hear about Sam Harris, you hear about Douglas Harding and the first time that he experienced it, where they couldn't tell you, like, nothing looks different exactly, but it is unmistakable. They are gobsmacked by it.
Yeah.
And
that can be, in some ways mine wasn't as dramatic in itself, in that I had similar experience. The thing was, for me, was like, oh my God, because I had been really doing the deliberate mindfulness down in Sri Lanka, that I was like, oh my God, this is like doable. It's right here. It's like, it was almost the like my whole life rolled out in front of me. Like, what else am I going to do? Like, this is ridiculous. This is like a jewel. And now I'm going to see how to translate this, because this is this close, this fast, this intentional. So it doesn't have to be dramatic. Some people will literally go like, yeah, but there's, like one of the people we were talking to tonight was like, it's like timeless and like still, but that's not awareness. Like bodhicitta, it's like bodhicitta, but awareness is not like bodhicitta, because, and I was like, well, what if awareness doesn't come and go, and was, kind of interconnected with everything, therefore felt like unity? And oh, right, oh, they are, yeah, so, it can kind of dawn on you like that too. It can be like, oh yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So it can be gradual and slow, and not as dramatic. Yeah.
I think that's useful to know, because what I was going to say is that I think one thing that some of us do, I know I do it, is while we're doing, say, a glimpse practice, or while we're doing, pristine mind meditation as taught by Orgyen Chowang Rinpoche, or while we're doing these sorts of practices, some part of us is checking our experience.
Yeah, that's right.
Be like, am I getting it yet? Am I getting it yet? And unless we're feeling sort of gobsmacked, the answer is nope, nope, nope. And I suspect that will make it much harder, right? That seems like an impediment.
So I would say that, and kind of I've noticed that and broke it down a little bit. So like one of the first catches is not, like you said before, is learning how to have no head, or not look from the head. but look from space. The second one is don't go back to the mind for a second opinion. In other words, that when you recognize the awareness, just see whether the awareness is alert and knowing without orienting to thought. And that can be like a little like, or a little part of you like, well, but are you sure that's what you want to do? And then you just stay there and watch this. Are you sure that's what you want to do? Go by and then you're like, oh, wow. And then it just kind of, or like it kind of like starts to sparkle. What was just absence starts to go like, or it goes like light on. And now you're aware from the awareness-based knowing. And you don't need to label anything, but you could say anything anytime.
It's as if, based on what you're saying, when you say you don't go up to your mind, don't go up to your thoughts for a second opinion, would it be right to say that even if this is it, even if you are in fact experiencing awake awareness, you still don't get to have, in that moment, you don't get to have the thought, this is it. That thought, this is it, would be poisonous to the experience.
So yeah, because if it comes from the checker or the labeler, so what it's like is, like, okay, let's learn how to ride a bicycle. Okay, now I'm pushing off. Now I'm like, okay, are you balancing? Oh my God, this is it. But this is it is not it. This is it. Like it's experiential. Like you do get like, oh, it's awake. And you could say that, but you know that whatever words are saying that, that's not that this is it. That's just
right,
like afterthought.
But if you're looking for the thought, this is it, or if you're looking for, if you're going to the thought, is this it? Then even if it was it, it's not going to be it for very long, right? Because
that's the radical thing is non-conceptual knowing. So that's what that means. Like awake awareness, you can't check with the mind for a second opinion. The awareness knows by itself. Now people operate from that in a flow state. They play basketball, they play music, they do things, and they're not thinking, and they have no ego, but they're focused out on the task. And as soon as the task leaves, they're back. So this is like, okay, do the task, go into the flow, walk in nature, now feel in and feel back. Notice who's here, who's walking in nature, who's playing, but not self-referencing, but just feel the orchestra, feel and then now stop playing and stay here. Oh, now do something else from here that's not playing something that you know how to do. So then you start to get a feel for, that was my last class. I just did one, like a six-week series. And the third one was, let's talk about thought and not non-conceptual knowing. And that's just like, it's like, let automatic thoughts go by. Don't get on the train. Like now be aware from the awareness that could pick up a thought, but doesn't have to be alert. And so those kind of things, all of a sudden you get a feel for that. That's the big transition.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I think that is probably a trap for a lot of people. That is this it? Is this it? And it's like, you kind of don't get to ask that question in this moment.
Right.
That's
why some of the transitions, the stepping stones of deliberate mindfulness, like one-pointedness can reinforce the ego and attentional system, and labeling can reinforce thought-based knowing as insight. And then the next, which is fine, those are great. And I'm very pro step by step. But then as soon as you go to awareness-based knowing, it literally is don't label. Like all at once, everything, you're seeing everything. You don't need to say land. Thoughts are going by. You don't need, the intelligence is so much smarter that has no thought. that you can just let anything go by as a wave of thought, but you're not interested in sentences or words or meaning. It's just mental sensations.
Mm.
And then, but you're doing that not to be dumb. You're doing that because you're in the flow consciousness, which is optimally wise.
Mm-hmm.
So that's so beautiful. Well, that's a good place to.
I think so. I think so. I could talk to you all. I could talk to you all night. You've been so generous with your time, Loch. This was really a pleasure. I hope sometime in the future you'll join us again.
Yes, I'd like to, and hopefully we'll have retreats, and you'll come to a retreat. Where do you live?
That'll be wonderful. I'm in New York. I'm in Brooklyn.
Oh, great. Well, then
you're in New York as well, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. So
that'll be easy to do then. Once things regain a semblance of normalcy.
Excellent.
So thank you, Loch. Have a great holiday. And take care. Have a good night.
Great talking to you, John. Really enjoyed it.
Bye.
Thanks.